The story introduces us to Vincent and Sophie. They're a married couple running this butcher shop in France. And they are failing miserably.
Yeah, they aren't just dipping into their savings. They are at the point where they cannot even cover basic monthly expenses. And for Vincent and Sophie, the problems aren't even minor.
No, not at all. They get hit with two massive catalysts that basically pour gasoline on this fire.
Right.
First, their shop is targeted by radical vegan activists. They vandalize the property, and they actually physically assault Vincent.
So his physical safety and really his identity as a tradesman are violently attacked.
Yeah. And then he goes home to all this domestic pressure. Vincent has this friend named Mark, who's a rival butcher, but Mark is wildly successful.
And completely tone deaf, right?
Oh, entirely. He's constantly flashing his cash around Vincent.
Right.
And Sophie looks at Mark's wealth, looks at her own miserable situation, and she just snaps. She threatens to leave Vincent.
Man, so this creates a highly volatile psychological cocktail for Vincent. He is humiliated, he's broke, physically battered, and his marriage is on the brink of collapse.
His nervous system is just completely fried at this point.
Right.
And in that state of hyperarousal, the inciting incident happens. Vincent is driving, and he spots one of the very same activists who assaulted him, just walking on the side of the road.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he hits him with his car. And then in this moment of pure blinding rage, he actually backs up and runs over him again.
Oh my God. And the moment that adrenaline fades, reality just hits him. He steps out of the car, sees a dead body, and completely panics.
Right, because the normal human protocol kicks in, which is, call the police.
But Sophie stops him.
Yes. Her reaction is fascinating because she operates with this terrifying, cold pragmatism.
She points out the obvious, right? Like, he just committed murder. Going to prison doesn't solve their financial problem.
Exactly. So she actually draws inspiration from a serial killer documentary she saw on TV.
As you do.
Right. And she suggests they just chop up the body to hide the evidence.
So he spends this grueling, traumatic night carving up the body, terrified of what he's doing, and eventually just falls asleep exhausted.
But the next morning...
So Vincent wakes up, goes down to the shop to dispose of the ground meat he prepared the night before, and it's just gone.
Yeah, he panics and asks Sophie where the evidence went, and she just casually mentions that she sold it.
She sold it?
Yeah, they were out of pork. A customer walked in, and she simply sold the inventory sitting right in front of her. And before Vincent can even process the horror of what his wife just did, the customer comes rushing back into the shop. He claims it is the most incredible, flavorful meat he has ever tasted, and he demands to know what it is.
And Vincent is caught completely off guard, so he invents this brilliant but deeply disturbing marketing lie right on the spot.
Yeah, he tells the customer it's, quote, Iranian pork.
Iranian pork.
Right, he pitches it as this highly sought-after, incredibly rare delicacy. By labeling it something exotic and exclusive, Vincent completely masks the horrific reality. The customer doesn't ask for supply chain documentation.
No, he just accepts the prestige label and leaves with more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that accidental success changes their reality in a matter of hours. Word of mouth operates like wildfire.
Suddenly, customers are flocking to this failing shop. They drain the entire supply in a flash.
And Vincent and Sophie look at the register at the end of the day, and they see a massive, unprecedented profit.
The immediate threat of bankruptcy is just gone.
But, of course, it forces them to look at a new, terrifying problem.
Right, how to restock.
Because the demand is undeniable now. That night, Vincent decides he needs to understand the product. So he cooks a piece of the meat and eats it himself.
And he is blown away. Like, he has to admit professionally that it is the best meat he has ever eaten.
Sophie introduces her dark logic to bridge their moral gap.
Right. She points out that the victim was a vegan activist.
Exactly. She proposes a new business model. She says, if they exclusively hunt vegans, they get incredibly rich. He says, absolutely not. The first time was an accident, and he draws a hard line. Well, shortly after this debate, they host a dinner party. Their daughter, Chloe, brings over her new boyfriend, Lucas. And Lucas, it turns out, is a strict vocal vegan who has recently converted Chloe to his lifestyle.
Vincent tries to play the role of the good host, though. He spends hours preparing a beautiful, elaborate meal for them.
Right.
But when he serves it, Lucas flat out refuses to touch it. He rejects Vincent's effort, his hospitality, and essentially his life's work as a food purveyor. Lucas ruins the entire evening, and after the kids leave, Vincent's pride is just severely wounded. His blood is boiling.
For their first planned hunt, they target the owner of a vegan restaurant. But when the moment of truth arrives, Vincent's nervous system overrides his new philosophy.
His hands shake uncontrollably, his heart rate spikes, and he literally just drops his weapon and runs away.
Yeah, so Sophie has to step in and act as his coach. She treats it like learning to ride a bike, basically telling him he just needs practice.
Right.
So they try a different environment. They go to a vegan festival, they dress up to blend in, and scout for an easy, physically weak target.
And they spot a skinny boy, isolate him, and lure him to their car.
But right as Vincent is steeling himself to finally strike, the boy's two friends show up and interrupt them.
Because these aren't just random festival goers.
No, they are not. These three individuals are hardcore activists actively planning a vandalism run on a butcher shop that very night.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because Vincent and Sophie are deeply undercover, pretending to be radical vegans to gain trust, so they can't blow their disguise.
All right, they're forced to join the vandalism crew.
They find themselves crammed in a car on their way to destroy a butcher shop.
The target the activists have chosen is none other than Mark's shop.
Vincent's arrogant, wealthy rival.
Exactly.
And Vincent's reaction is incredible. He doesn't just pretend to participate, he is absolutely delighted.
Oh yeah, he grabs a bat and unleashes months of pent-up jealousy and financial inadequacy on Mark's pristine shop.
It doesn't actually solve their supply chain problem. They still haven't secured a victim.
Right, which leads to how they finally get one. And it is a masterclass in manipulation by Sophie.
Oh, this part is dark.
Very. They're at a restaurant, and Sophie decides the current strategy just isn't working, so she starts aggressively flirting with one of the restaurant workers. She bites his lip so hard it bleeds, and uses that as an excuse to take him back to her house to, quote-unquote, treat his wound.
She just weaponizes her sexuality to lure the prey right into their living room.
Exactly. But even with the victim literally delivered to him, Vincent's mental block returns. He freezes again.
Right. And look at how Sophie breaks that block. She doesn't appeal to their bank account. She doesn't remind him of the philosophy of ridding the world of vegans.
No, she hits him where it actually hurts.
She looks at Vincent and threatens to sleep with the worker right there on the couch if Vincent doesn't kill him.
She completely bypasses all his newly constructed rationalizations and triggers his most primal territorial instinct.
It's a threat to his masculinity and his marriage.
Yeah, he snaps, he attacks the man, and beats him, completely destroying the victim's head in the process.
They process the body, clean the living room, and open the shop the next day.
And they step into a market that has completely lost its mind.
Yeah, the demand for the Iranian pork is astronomical.
Vincent is selling out daily. Other butchers in town are actually going bankrupt because consumers refuse to buy anything else.
So Vincent starts killing people on a daily basis. He drastically increases the price, but the line of customers out the door just keeps getting longer.
The economics of it are terrifying.
They start having incredibly close calls.
It becomes almost farcical. Mark and his wife come to Vincent's house crying about their ruined shop, seeking comfort from the very man who smashed their windows.
Right. And then later, a police officer pulls Vincent aside. Vincent is sweating profusely, assuming the gig is up.
But the cop just wants to use his authority to skip the line and secure an order of the special pork.
Which is insane. There is even a moment of pure dark comedy where the police officer comes to Vincent's house to pick up his order.
Oh, this scene.
While they are talking, Vincent's dog casually trots into the room carrying a severed human hand in its mouth.
Yeah.
Vincent has to frantically distract the cop, promising him premium cuts tomorrow, and miraculously, the officer is so focused on his own appetite that he doesn't even notice the dog.
And the turning point arrives through Mark. Despite the rivalry and his ruined shop, the hype is just too big to ignore. So Mark buys some of the famous meat.
Right.
He's enjoying it, eating his dinner, when he bites down hard on something metallic.
He pulls it out of his mouth. Now, Mark doesn't know what it is, but his wife is a former nurse.
Right.
She takes one look at the device and identifies it immediately. It is a pacemaker.
A medical device for a human heart.
Yeah. Because Vincent had scaled up his hunting so rapidly, he got sloppy. He had recently killed an older man and simply missed the device during his rapid processing of the body. And Vincent, cornered and panicking, tries to claim that the pig must have eaten a pacemaker. Mark obviously sees right through it. A massive brawl breaks out, and in the heat of the fight, Vincent literally bites off and chews Mark's ear.
Yeah, that bite is highly symbolic. It's a display of sheer animalistic savagery. Vincent isn't acting like a butcher protecting his business anymore.
Yeah.
He's reacting like a feral predator.
A few days later, Vincent is at another outdoor festival. He is looking around and his eyes land on a little child. But his brain has been so corrupted by his new reality, that instead of seeing a kid, he actually starts drooling.
His brain has remapped the concept of human entirely into food.
He drives straight to the shop, walks out to the massive line of hungry customers, and announces that the Iranian pork is no longer being imported.
And then he just leaves. He walks away, abandoning Sophie alone in the shop.
But you cannot cleanly walk away from an ecosystem of violence you created.
No, you can't. While Sophie's alone, those 3 vegan activists from the car ride return.
Right.
They'd eventually piece together that Vincent and Sophie were fake vegans, just using them for cover. They are furious at the manipulation, and they kidnap Sophie for revenge.
Vincent discovers his shop empty and his wife missing, and he tracks them down. And the climax is just a bloodbath.
Yeah. Vincent's dog attacks one activist. Vincent violently dispatches another.
The final activist manages to string Vincent up on an actual meat hook, and he is moments away from death when Sophie frees herself, grabs a hook of her own, and kills the last attacker.
So they survive the immediate physical threat. But the narrative closes the loop on their operational sloppiness.
Remember Mark and his wife, the nurse.
Yes, they didn't just brush off the pacemaker and the bitoneer. They went straight to the authorities and reported their very credible suspicions.
And the police swoop in with a massive investigation team. They tear the property apart, and the full scope of the horror comes to light.
They uncover the evidence of a staggering 30 murders.
30?
Yeah. Vincent and Sophie are arrested, put on trial, and both are sentenced to death.
The downward spiral is complete.
It is.
So what does this all mean? When you step back from the blood and the shock value, you realize the true horror of this story isn't actually the cannibalism.
No, it's a razor-sharp, dark satire on supply, demand, and complicity.
Exactly. The most terrifying part is how quickly an entire town of normal, civilized people turned a blind eye to the physically impossible logistics of this magical meat.
Yeah, a failing shop suddenly has an endless supply of the rarest product on Earth, and no one cares.
They outsourced the morality to the butcher because the final product tasted good.
It perfectly illustrates our capacity to compartmentalize reality when it benefits us. As long as the victims remain invisible, the consumer appetite is limitless.
Which leaves you with a deeply unsettling question to ponder. In our own modern lives, when we find an incredible deal, a hyper-convenient service, or a product we just can't get enough of, well, how often do we willfully ignore the ethical cost of how it was made, simply because we enjoy the final product too much to ask questions?